On September 16th, a memo by Islamic University in Uganda was issued, which contained saying that there was going to be mandatory pregnancy screening, of which it sparked a lot of debate within the institution, but also outside as well. But other than that, we shall also be delving into the 71 member delegate that Uganda took or went to the United Nations General Assembly. My name is Douglas Onen. I'll be your host or moderator for this week's episode of the Inter-University Interface. And joining me in tonight's conversation is a panel of distinguished ladies and gentlemen from renowned institutions in this country to help put into perspective tonight's conversation, which is about the mandatory pregnancy screening at Islamic University in Uganda and the 71 member delegates that went to the United Nations General Assembly to represent Uganda. In no particular order, I'll begin from the gentleman from my extreme right to go ahead and introduce himself and let people know where exactly is right until my nearest right here. I'll begin with you, sir. Feel free to introduce yourself and let the viewers know who you are.
Yeah, thank you very much, Drake. Well, my name is Bwiranda Kennedy Max, and I'm a second-year law student at Makerere University. I'm the chairman of the Pan-African Students' Union of Uganda, and I work as a law clerk at Chumro Msinguzi Company Advocates and High Court licensed process server. I'm really glad to be here to exchange and chatter the forthright path for African youth. And I'm really passionate about these spaces that we keep on engaging in to tow the path of duty and progress in Uganda. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Max Kennedy. We're looking forward to having a wonderful conversation with you. You have a very heavy and interesting offices you hold there. So definitely we shall use that to put perspective into our conversation. The gentleman who looks quite serious. Feel free and introduce yourself.
Well, my name is Onoke Joshua, a student of Uganda Christian University, doing law in my year 4. And I'm very glad to be part of this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joshua. We're definitely looking forward to having a wonderful discussion with you.
Thank you.
The lady on the panel, on the man.
Yeah, thank you, Drake. My name is Grace Bagaya, and I am a student of law at Islamic University in Uganda, particularly Kampala campus, and I am as well the Deputy Speaker of the Law Society. I'm delighted to be today's panelist. Thank you.
The right person to actually give us an insight of the mandatory pregnancy screening. Looking forward to engaging you.
Thank you.
Gentleman in a neat suit.
Thank you so much, Honorable Drake. My name is Bushanda Godwin. I'm a fourth-year student at Makerere University, doing Bachelor of Commerce, majoring in Finance. I'm a former GRC in 87th Guild and currently the 89th GRC of Makerere Betting Union. I'm glad to be here in a panel of honor law scholars. So I'm here to panel beat with the Constitution and maybe laws. Thank you so much.
And hopefully there won't be so much that requires a lot of, panel beating, but nonetheless. Grace, let's begin with you. The conversation that the memo that was issued on 16th of September, which articulated issues relating to mandatory pregnancy screening, that all female students are supposed to be subjected to a pregnancy test. It sparked a lot of public discourse within the institution and outside. Kindly provide for us a context or an overview of what exactly happened, so that as we have this discussion, we have it from an informed point of view, because you are a student at Islamic University in Uganda.
Yeah, thank you, Drake. As you've stated, there was a memo issued, and it was about the mandatory testing, pregnancy testing or screening of the female students at Islamic University in Uganda. So, as I must say, this has been happening from time immemorial. It's not that it has just come out.
So it's a university policy?
Yeah, it's a university policy to conduct such testing of the pregnancy screening. So, yeah, that's it.
Okay, so getting to understand that it is a university policy, and the memo just reinstated what exactly it was talking about. It looks like this time around the reception from the students was quite different. What was different about it this time around?
I don't think there was, just that it made rounds around social media.
My brother, Max Kennedy, I just, from what Grace has talked about, it being a university policy that has been there from, as she's, in her own words, time immemorial. Let us get the legal perspective. We need to understand the rationale and implementation of mandatory pregnancy screening. So my question to you is, what is the main reason behind implementing mandatory screening before we enter and understand the legal implications? What do you think is the reason behind such policies that universities come up with?
Yeah, thank you very much. First and foremost, we need to understand the times currently, the prevalent situation in universities in the 21st century. Well, if you get a historical perspective of how life at campus, not only just institutions of higher learning, but all these tertiary institutions, universities that have cropped up ever since Makerere University, which was a sole university back in the day. Now we have other universities that came up, and we realize that IUIU was established by an act of parliament, the IUIU Act, and it is premised on Islamic concepts, Islamic philosophy, and principles that follow a certain way of life. So, like I said earlier, the situation, we need to first and foremost appreciate the current situation. What are the youth in universities today being exposed to? If I'm to speak from a personal experience, I really need to make this very, very personalized and informal so that my fellow youth who will be watching this program will understand. So you may pardon my informalities. So to best understand what students are going through at campus, it's a whole exposure. Many of us, for example, me, I was in a single school all my life of high school and primary. So getting exposed to the life here at campus where I'm not being patrolled by anyone has serious repercussions. Repercussions that may not be good on my side and on my future. And what does this entail? You realize that today, the culture of Ugandans today is partying. So what arises from the partying? Sexual intimacy that is actually very viral. The sexual networks at campus today have exposed students to exploring, if I'm to use that term, and enjoying their sexual liberties. Thanks to the 1995 Constitution that makes Uganda a secular country. But now we have a university like IUIU, which is based on religious principles. In a bid to curb such eventualities that may happen, from the philandering by the boys and the promiscuity that is presupposed because students are exposed to this kind of lifestyle, in a bid to curb such eventualities, they established that mandate of testing for pregnancy, which I may call coercive. It is mandatory, but I do believe it's coercive because it presupposes and it provides a wrong implication that all female students are sleeping around. So therefore, they must be checked if they are pregnant or not. So I really understand from the university's side, the university management is trying to enforce these rules to ensure that the students that they are grooming in class academically are also in line spiritually and morally. So I believe as we expound further this discussion that we are having here, we're going to look at all those other dimensions, the legal perspective and the morality. Who can be able to determine whether pregnancy is a moral question or not? So I look forward to engaging further on that, but I do believe ultimately the rationale for these coercive pregnancy tests is to ensure that people are in line, people are in check. If you know that your university carries out mandatory pregnancy tests periodically during the semester, at least the least you will do while you engage in sexual intimacy as a student is to strap, like they say in the terms these days. Yes, use a condom or contraceptives to ensure that you're not caught up by such predicaments.
All right. Godwin, by the time we join university education in the Uganda curriculum, oftentimes we are all above the age of 18. And the idea is that when you, according to our law, Ugandan constitution, when you're 18, you are an adult and you're free to make your decisions accordingly because you are considered to be someone who is an adult. Now that said, the question that my brother Max Kennedy raises are very fundamental and very important in tonight's conversation. The issue of sexual and reproductive health, or things to do with sexuality as a whole. And that is quite rampant in our society today, that when we get into campus, people have the freedom. Before we delve further into actually discussing this policy into detail, when I bring Joshua on, help us understand the situation around sexual reproductive health. Do our parents do enough talking to us? Because the rationale behind such a policy is for one, curb pregnancies, yes, but also to help the girl child remain in school. Speak to that issue.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think I had a very good conversation from him. But then, before I come into your question, I want us to understand we have not reached a level where we're discussing the in-depth of it, of the mandatory pregnancy testing. Maybe we're discussing, because as Godwin, because me, I've also gone through single schools for almost all my 6 years. And here I am at Makerere University. But the question is, if IUIU brings such a law, and maybe it is by University Council, which is the high ruling body of any institution, and says it is mandatory, the question is, how is someone being pregnant affect the education pertaining to university? We have to understand, because if we tested if I'm pregnant, okay, if a girl is pregnant, how does it affect the education quality of that university? And how many students are you having at IUIU or any university? How many students are below 18 years? That's the first thing. Okay, I understand that maybe, like you said, the university is established on the laws pertaining to the Sharia law and all that. But then, if you look at the core values of IUIU, you are going to find things like very, very, very interesting things as a creativity, diversity. And IUIU does not maybe admit only Muslims. Yes. It admits even Christians. And when you're giving education, I understand, because the question is, if IUIU was set up on Sharia law, was it only mandated to be for only Muslims? No. Okay, if Christians are coming, or any other person of any dominion, maybe he's not even a Christian, should we penalize such people? Because maybe Sharia law can act on me as a Muslim, but maybe you have those people not Muslims. So we have to discuss like that. Me as a yes.
Before you proceed, for purposes of guidance,
yes.
Before you join an institution of higher learning,
yes.
There are rules that will be set out to you that you sign before joining that institution. So when you're joining that institution, you know that this institution doesn't allow this, doesn't allow that, or accepts this, doesn't accept that. So on that note, because on law, when you append your signature on such a document, you are agreeing to follow and abide all the rules and regulations that institution that sets to you before you join. Now, how would you then defend, because IUIU is run on Islamic principles? If I am a Christian and I've agreed to condone and follow the Islamic laws, I have to abide to it. So does your argument therefore say that for people who are Christians, they shouldn't follow the rules because...
No, I didn't say that. I was very clear in my submission.
Yeah.
I said that anyone who joins the university, one is everyone. I think the list that you can join, we can be 18 years.
Yeah.
That's all you made, or you made all the best education, maybe started at a young age. By 18, you are in first year, which is very clear. And I want to understand, maybe I'm dealing with only law scholars here. You can clarify and tell me maybe there's a law that says, because even these university policies that they have, they also have, they are not above the constitution. And you cannot set up a law. Me, I have no problem with IUIU coming such a thing. But my question is, if you're testing, what are you addressing? Are you addressing the Sharia law, or you're addressing, maybe you're addressing like moral decadence, like I was saying? If it is moral decadence, then I think it's a very wrong direction. But if it is Sharia law, maybe by the time you sign, then it is good, it's the way to go. But then the question is, that Sharia law that you're following, maybe testing everything is mandatory. How is it impactful in terms of education? Because I expect it is providing education to students. Education has no limits. Someone can actually, I don't see any problem with someone being pregnant, but by they follow the Sharia law, that's where the problem comes in. And maybe the IUIU, they have to make it clear. Say for us, we are following the Sharia law, because this is not the first time they're bringing this. It's a restatement, actually. It has ever brought back, they discussed it, they stopped it, now it is back. It has been reinstated. So I want to understand, maybe he's a student at IIU, to give us a brief. By the time they brought it back, what was the problem? Because it was there first, it was halted, then it is reinstated. What's the problem? Was the debate maybe asking the public and engaging the students? Were students engaged? Were they okaying it?
Okay. Just before we proceed, let me engage Grace, then I have Josh,
Yes,
to help guide the debate.
Yes.
He poses very serious questions of what was the issue, what was rising, because this particular policy was just reinstated. Was there a surge in questions relating to morality in the institution that maybe saw them reinstating this particular policy?
Yeah. Thank you, Drake. As he has said, as you've stated too, that the institution itself is based on Sharia law. So there has not been any rise or any question in regard to morality. But I believe that it was reinstated in order to uphold the university's values.
All right. Joshua, the conversation now is running in lines of right to education. He poses a very serious issue that, you see, the institution offers education, and the policies of the institution are not superior to the superior law of the land, which is the constitution that provides the right to education. We saw the organization, Uganda Women's Association, FIDA, commonly known as FIDA, challenging and trying to engage the institution that, you see, this is going to infringe the right to education. Speak to the issue of the legal and ethical consequences that particular policy can have on the institution, but also as a country as a whole.
Yeah, thank you so much, Drake. One of the panelists has spoken. He has given a very good point of view when he was trying to clarify that the constitution is a superior. So like you cannot have any other law that goes against the constitution. Now, when you look at the legal and ethical considerations, we are going to bring in now constitutional rights. If you talk about constitutional rights, we are looking at what are these rights which are being violated through this mandatory screening of these girls in universities like IUIU. So we are going to see, like, are those rights there accepted? I mean, are they in violation of the rights to maybe the dignity of the girl child, maybe to privacy, education. So if those rights there are in violation of that, because you see, when you look at maybe girl child, maybe students in a university, these girls, these rights here, they have their own rights as girls. They have that right to privacy. They have that right to education. So if you're going to fail to admit me to a university, or if you're going to disqualify me from a university because of me being maybe pregnant, then you're in violation of my rights, because basically that's my right. The Constitution provides for it. So two, we're also going to look at the reproductive rights. Now, reproductive rights, this is where girls maybe they know what they want to do with their bodies. You get, they can decide when to have a child and when not to have a child. So if you come in and control how I coordinate my body, then you're in violation of my rights. You get. So basically we are the institution is in violation of many rights,
But Joshua,
and we are not in support of it.
Joshua,
Yeah.
you're saying the university is in violation of those rights.
Yeah.
I would still go back to the argument and point that you see, before you join a particular institution, you agree, you append your signature on that admission form that you're given before entering an institution, that you agree to those policies.
Yeah.
And for many Ugandans, oftentimes we do not read documents. I, for one, when I was being admitted into Uganda Christian University, I did not take time to read because I knew that there are certain things that are not required in my institution. So I just knew, I just went with that implied knowledge that I had in mind. Now, if you sign and append your signature on those, on that admission letter, would you then therefore blame the institution for coming up with such a policy?
Well, the truth is, I wouldn't really blame the institution, but we also have a constitution that is superior, and we cannot expect the laws of the institution to be ahead of the constitution.
All right.
So yeah.
Let me engage my brother. A few years ago, there was a case in law that happened in Makerere University. The students who were Seventh-day Adventists, you're all aware of that case. What happened?
Sharon Dimanche.
Yes, Sharon Dimanche. That these particular students went for worship on Saturday, and yet the university had the policy of doing exams over the weekend, and they failed. They failed on winning the case on grounds that the university policies provided clearly that on Saturdays you do exams. So they weren't given, they redo. So they had to what? Retake. In that particular case, we see the policies of the institution standing and prevailing tall. They also argued right to education. Now let's relate this to the instance of IUIU. Wouldn't IUIU still argue the same? Because you go to that institution arguing the same. What do you think?
Well, I would well concur with my brother right here.
Yeah.
That I believe in constitutional supremacy. I am a firm and ardent supporter of constitutionalism. And I so believe that IUIU is a body that's not above and beyond the constitution. So therefore, in as much as it was stipulated in their rules and regulations, that, well, students are not supposed to become pregnant while studying.
But the same issue
Yes.
happened with Makerere University. You do exams over the weekend, and you claim for your right to worship.
I think the scenario of Makerere is a bit different from the one at hand right now, because that of Makerere was more concerned of the right to profess your religion, which is not as detrimental to certain fundamental rights. Now,
rights are rights.
Yes.
The fact is, rights are rights. If it's aside from the non-derogable rights, the others remain their rights. So now those rights remain the same, and the right to education, it falls under. I think I don't go into details of first, second, and third generational rights. We are not in a human rights class. But the issue at hand is, wouldn't IUIU argue and say, before you joined our institution, you knew that we ride on principles of Islamic laws. That means you have to abide to the policies that we put in place. Wouldn't they be right to argue that?
I really think I would disagree with that because, for example, let me give you a scenario.
Yeah.
If at all, before you join a university, a particular university, University X, for example, and you're made to sign the rules and regulations as a precondition of admission. And if it so happens that the rules and regulations indicate that you must participate in subversive activities against the state, treasonous activities, and maybe in the course after signing, in the course of your study, you refrain from such activity, then the university expels you. So would you use the same argument that, well, you subjected yourself to this rule and regulation that stipulated you to participate in these activities? So the rules and regulations that you were initially told to subscribe to are in contravention of the laws of Uganda. So which one would supersede the other? I so suppose that everything must be in line with the Constitution. It must not contravene the Constitution.
so we are
and I do
having-
believe mandatory testing is the number one thing that contravenes
All right.
the right to
All right.
privacy. Thank you.
Before I come to you, let me get to Grace. Grace, sexual reproductive health is a very critical issue at hand, and very many of our brothers and sisters, when they join university, people are at that stage whereby they are sexually active, and it looks like people do not seem to control themselves. Let us now speak. I want you to speak to the issue relating to the sexual and reproductive health. Are our institutions doing enough? Are our parents doing enough in trying to train us and prepare us for what is yet to happen? It's because we realize, like, when we get into campuses, when we feel like we have the freedom, and that is when we do all these things, and at times we end up messing up. What's to say?
Thank you, Drake. If you may allow, I think let me first address the question you posed to him. When you were asking him, you did ask that on entry of the university, you have to sign the rules. And that means you are bound by the rules. And then you brought in the Sharon Dimanche case. And then, basing on that same case, the university, on addition of signing the rules, they also carry out orientation. And in these orientation sessions, this is where they tell you about, they brief you about what the university believes in and what they actually do. So he talks about the supremacy of the Constitution, but it's the same Constitution, I think in Article 29, that provides that we have the right to exercise the religion of our choices. So bringing it back or linking it to what I said in the first instance, that when you come to the university, you've signed the rules, and that means you're bound by the rules. For example, there are other things that are entertained by the university. For example, we are not allowed to wear trousers. We are, regardless of your religion, you're supposed to wear in the Islamic way. So you have to veil, and you have to wear a very long dress to the toes, and it shouldn't be transparent. Actually, most of the times, we do have the dean of students sit at the gate to make sure that on entering the university, you're not wearing either a tight dress or something that is transparent. So that is where I get to your question, that are the universities doing enough, or are our parents doing enough? So I believe that is one way of actually trying to curb the rise of sexual immorality or something. And then in Article, I think 43, I'm not certain about it, but I think it provides that on enjoyment of your rights, you shouldn't infringe other people's rights. So that is where I come in, that instead of the university actually saying that, you know what, we are going to provide mandatory testing, how about we adopt sexual awareness? Let's teach the students about what is ought to be done, and maybe what is supposed to be done in order to curb sexual immorality.
As a student leader, have you proposed that to the institution?
Not.
You should.
It's a resolution we are making here.
It is a resolution.
But yeah, I think I'll include that.
You should.
Actually, that has sparked such a great idea. So I think the university needs to put in more work and just address the issue of sexually reproductive health, other than taking stringent measures. Because as I've said, Article 43, yes, you know that you're admitting both Islamic students and non-Islamic. So why don't you? And another thing, when on completion of your degree, you have to recite, I think they are called shuras, close to 10. But non-Muslims are exempted. So the same way we are exempted from not reciting the shuras, how about, that is where I bring it to religion-based a religion-based perspective.
Yeah.
So how about, yes, because even if it's not the institution saying so, but when these guys go back home, it's the same values they are going to face. And it's their right, they're exercising. They are restricted in some way or the other. So how about if you say that we are going to hold mandatory, how about also exempt those that do not subscribe to the faith? Yeah, thank you.
Powerful recommendations, which I think, as a student leader, since you're deputy speaker in the nation, in your
Law
law society, you can go and recommend and maybe have the university implement that. This question goes to Godwin and Joshua, is in line of gender equality and discrimination. Does such a policy of mandatory pregnancy screening discriminate the female students in a particular way?
Okay, thank you so much. I think before I come to your question, you asked a very good question about the case that happened in Makerere. You see, the problem, I have a problem as a person. I'm a Christian. I pray on Sunday. So I can pray anytime I want. I can either pray in the afternoon or I can pray in the morning, depending on how I have programmed myself. So Makerere having exams on Saturday, it did not violate the rights to go and worship. It did not. Unless if you want your lawyers, unless if you want to tell me, go into the depth, and even you, the moderator, you tell me it was this. Because if the paper is from 2 to 5, you have the right from morning to go and worship. It did not say that you don't worship. No. So you come and do your paper, after paper, go and do what? And worship. Yeah. Then, about, you asked a very good question about reproductive health and how the parents may be and all that. So the problem is, this issue of reproductive health, I think, is being addressed at a very, very strange stage. At a stage of Godwin, who is above 18, at a stage of her, who is above 18, really, it cannot bring that impact. I think the reproductive health has started from nursery, and how the parents have to take time to sit down and talk to their children. Because it does not make sense, by the way. Like I say, you see, you cannot hug. Then in the morning, after your lectures, you come, you hug everything. So what does it say? Is it just a matter of showing the compound is insanity, and then when you get out, you do other things contrary? So it really, you find that they're addressing it, but at a wrong stage. And like I've told her, she should go and maybe start concepting out about the movement and address. And then about gender discrimination, about the gender and female being discriminated. I think this world has always taken females to be a soft spot for everything to happen in the society. Me, as a person, because before, we have to be very honest when you're discussing things.
I see Gloria is smiling because I feel like she wants to respond to that.
No.
We have to be, females have been taken to be a soft spot in every action, in every point. Females. But the problem is, the question is, if you screen that girl, because the morality you're talking about, most of the times people see morality within girls. That's why they address the issue of immorality. But also boys are immoral.
It's very subjective.
Yeah, but because boys, you don't have what to show, for us, we're always in our suits and clean, you think you're very good. But these ladies here, they are so prone to those immoralities in the society. Because depending on how the African settings and African settings are organized, it was very hard to find a woman drinking alcohol. It was very hard to find a woman putting on even pants and all that. But when these things happen, they are the first spots. But also women have our own morals that we do. But because I think we don't expose, we have those small things that we can do expose. But now, it does not create sense actually. It is totally different to put such a hard law to girls, because first of all, him pregnant a girl. So there are two people in immoral actions: the girl and a boy. So where do you leave a boy?
Double standards.
So it takes us back to what you were suggesting, that institutions need to go ahead and start having awareness, which then brings to your argument that we need to start this from a very young age. From a very young age. So the issue of saying that if you're a girl and you're pregnant, screening and all that, before you go for screening and you calculate this girl here, who is a boy? That's a question. So I think it is addressed in a wrong way and even at the wrong stage, according to me. And among that,
brings actually gender inequality. You find that girls are so prone to all those things. And I think, to my own understanding, it is a very good thing, but addressed in the wrong time, and actually even addressed in the wrong timing and all that. Thank you so much.
Josh, okay. I asked him a question in relation to gender equality and discrimination. People have raised the arguments that you see when you go ahead and only screen the girl child, it one or the other. First of all, it shows discrimination. He brings out a very key point that it takes two people to create a baby. It doesn't take one person. It takes a man, it takes a woman. But the person who bears the burden is the lady, because the lady is looked at as the epitome or the picture or the or that
Is the bearer of an action.
Yes, not actually the bearer of an action. She's the one that shows the face of morality in society.
Exactly.
The protagonist.
So that being the case, the question still stands: does mandatory pregnancy screening disproportionately affect female students?
Yeah, it actually affects female students, but I also agree with Godwin. It's double standard. It's two-sided. You can't blame it on only the female, because even the male people also. So immorality is two-sided in this case. So, what I would maybe advise is that IUIU as a university should revisit their laws. I mean, their provisions maybe, and maybe change this thing of mandatory pregnancy screening. It's not necessary, because you see from experience, I know most of the girls who undergo this maybe start getting ashamed coming to school.
Others go on abort.
There's so much stigma around.
There's a lot of stigmatization around there. So it's better that IUIU comes up with maybe support facilities, maybe encourage girls to go for safe abortions, maybe safe abortion services.
You know the Islamic laws don't agree with that.
Yeah, you've crossed the red line.
No, maybe I think a recommendation of coming up with those awareness sessions and all would do. But proceed.
Yeah, so they need to have these other solutions. But you're subjecting a girl to this kind of screening, you're chasing them out of school. They will not come back. And you know girls are very sensitive. They do not like being affected.
We are here saying we need girls in school.
And we need girls in school.
Again, you bring strange laws that make them actually at a...
Yeah, that's very true. So for me, I would actually advise that if it's possible, maybe as a student leader, you should be able to get to the faculty, maybe get to administration, encourage them to revisit some of these guidelines, these laws that they put in place, and have maybe create a favorable environment for both. Yeah,
definitely. I would also like to pick your opinions on the same to do with gender equality and discrimination, particularly in the girl child.
Yes, like he has pointed out, this is pure double standards, because now we're looking at this old narrative that women being mothers cannot be connected with women being students, which I think is very, very false. So the one thing is creating a nexus between young mothers and how they can become good students. If at all someone is found pregnant, let them continue with their studies. If at all you want to punish someone who has gotten pregnant when they're not supposed to be pregnant at that time, you punish the other side too. Make sure you look for the perpetrators. And you see, the funny thing is that today, in today's generation, we find that girls at university, those who impregnate them may not be necessarily their classmates, but men with wrinkles behind here, you know. So I think so I think we need to address that gender inequality, because now we are seeing about three issues. One to do with the privacy of the women. What happens to the results that are taken? So we also need to find out, are they exposed? Because there's so much stigma that revolves around getting pregnant.
Public relations, I think the public relations from the main campus said that the results are not published. They stay with the appropriate
Then
people.
well and good.
But also that is not well and good actually. Because if you knew you were seated with Godwin in class and a couple of 2 months is no longer attending, and what do you expect? Still, it is just like saying, okay, we're not showing that this girl is positive, but yet you have been chased. Actually, that's the clear, because for us, we're not looking at publishing results.
Yeah.
But what the implication of a girl getting out of a university, it is also, it is just actually a repercussion of the results. So it does not, and either way, it does not address the issue of privacy.
But me, in my opinion, what I would recommend, if IUIU is to stick to the fundamental religious principles of someone not getting children while they're not married, I think they should embrace something you had before, where if it is stipulated in the rules and regulations that if you're not married, you're not supposed to have babies. Then maybe later on
It is there
we
in
can.
the rules.
Is it there? Okay, that's good. I think they should stick to that. Where if you get pregnant and you're not able to show a marriage certificate that you're a bona fide married spouse of someone, then I think they can do away with you. That's fine. But this issue of coercing people to test, that is first of all assuming that all these women are sleeping
Sexually
around.
active.
Yes.
Unfortunate. Grace, before we shift gears to the conversation of the 71-man delegate that went to the United Nations General Assembly, I want us to understand the health and well-being of pregnant students. In every society, in every institution of higher learning, we have scenarios. Students are engaging in unprotected sex. Students are getting pregnant. Students are aborting. I am aware that if you are caught or if you're pregnant in your institution without proper explanation, without showing that you are legally married, then you're expelled from the institution. In what way? What has this done when that memo was released? Did people possibly engage in unsafe abortion practices? How was the mental health of the female students in the institution? Because that is very key and very important.
Thank you, Drake. As I said earlier on, that the memo came straight from the main campus. It wasn't particularly on our campus.
But it's binding on all.
Yeah, it's binding in a way that from our campus, what you're supposed to do is that they only check on entry. That's when they check. So if you're not married, you're not allowed, or you have to provide a reason for that. So I must say that I've not heard of any cases of, because as I've said, they do not conduct them from our campuses, from our campus. So I'm not in the know of any people that were actually tested positive and maybe they took other measures. Yeah.
All right, perfect. So now as we wind up this conversation, I just quickly want us to come up with quick recommendations, not only for IUIU, but for the broader scale in terms of sexual and reproductive health, what needs to be done, because this seems to be a huge problem across board. Young people are engaging in a lot of unprotected sex. You find someone who is aged 18, they're sexually active. No one has told them of how to use contraceptives or how to use condoms. They just engage in the activity, and before they know it, the girl is pregnant. They have gotten STDs, they have gotten STIs. So quickly, I'll just get your thoughts. I'll begin with you, Godwin, until the last person there. Then we can shift gears into the next conversation.
Okay, thank you so much, Drake. I think, one, this is, as young people who are at university, and here we are as a panel, and maybe those people, we who have understood the depth of the dangers of such, and how we need reproductive health to go on. I think it is high time we came up with a very good solution as a team. But one thing I would recommend is that we need to address the issue of reproductive health from the beginning of education level, maybe from nursery up to high school. And you address, because we have very many clubs like Interact Club, we have very many clubs that address such issues. Because me, when I was in high school, those people in Interact Club we used to see them as people of a certain level. That's what they had as values of Interact Club. So we need also to have such clubs come in And their issue is to address the dangers, the solutions to such reproductive health. But then we should not address them by putting strange measures. That's where we go wrong. And more so you address them at university level, at a very high institution. It's very dangerous because otherwise if you start that, then you're going away from the word university. Because it is a vast of everyone, whether you're married or not, you can come and study. Because at university, the education, I expect everyone who's there is mature enough to understand I'm supposed to do this, I'm supposed to do this. But you cannot address the issue of reproductive health at university level. The university level it can be a trumpet to the down level to address the issue, so that by the time we reach university, I think we have reached a certain percentage in addressing the issue of reproductive health. So I think we need to have clubs in schools, secondary schools and primary schools.
But those clubs are there. I remember when we were growing up, we had clubs like PSA,
Youth Alive.
Youth Alive.
They are, but what are they addressing? You see, that's a problem. You can be there,
Section
but what are they
reproductive
addressing?
health,
No. Remember, I know Youth Alive, I know the PSA you're talking about. You go to those primary schools, PSA are no longer there.
Yes, they're no longer
They
active.
are no longer active. That's a problem.
They outlived their purpose.
Yes, they don't know what they're addressing. So we need to bring them again to life, and you have that issue being addressed. But one thing that I go wrong, and maybe the discussants will agree with me, is having strange measures at campus level. It's a very wrong direction to go. So the Minister of Education and Sports, and maybe other partners who are able to address such issues, we need to have those clubs active and be given a concept what to follow, what to address. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Grace.
Yeah, thank you, Drake. What I can think of is that I concur with him. And to add more on what he has said is that we need more campaigns and advocacy and educating the masses or the students about sexual reproductive health, and how, even if they have found themselves in such situations, what they need to do in that regard. And also, I think of recent, we didn't have counseling sessions or a counseling center at our campus, but of recent, we got a counselor. Now such issues making rounds around social media, the stigmatization that comes around. So we need access to, it affects people's mental health. So we also need counseling to make the person that has experienced such not feel bad as yet or regret their actions, or maybe to regret and know what not to do next time. Yeah.
Thank you. Counseling, very important. Joshua, what do you think?
Yeah, well, I'm just going to be brief because I'm saying both are covering the same thing, because
All right.
we're all looking at
Let us focus on family. The two of you are going to handle family. They have handled what the institutions ought to do. Family is the smallest unit in our communities. And families make us. It is from our families that it informs our characters. What are our parents, what are our guardians supposed to do? Because I am aware most parents are shy to talk about these things. What you say?
Well, parents should adopt this policy of maybe taking children for also counseling and guidance kind of sessions. Maybe they should also engage in conversations once with their family, sit with their family members, talk to them about these issues, make them aware of these issues and how they are dangerous. So basically, it comes back to collective and shared responsibility. Parents are supposed to work, maybe to bring up the child well, and maybe send them to university, and the child is safe and cannot go and mess up again in the university. So basically, parents are they're playing their role. Maybe some are playing their role, but I believe they're trying. They're really trying.
All right.
Yeah.
Max.
Yes. So one of the things that I've appreciated about the NRM government since its inception in the 80s is the way in which it curbed the HIV/AIDS pandemic when it had first arose in southern Uganda, I remember.
In Rakai.
Yes, people were scared. Silimu. But one of the things we can always credit President Museveni is the fact that he combated HIV to an extent that it would have, traversed the whole country at very, very rapid rates. But somehow it was averted. Now, how about the interventions that were used in combating HIV, not to be as it is today, but how about we apply those interventions on sexual reproductive health? as a family, being the smallest, the most basic unit of human life, I do believe that there's such a huge role that our parents must play in ensuring that we are in line with a good sexual life. Because I do believe by the time most people are 18 and above, they are sexually active. So the issue is not stopping people from engaging in their sexual activities, but how can they best protect themselves from unwanted pregnancies and the STDs. So like how the government did in schools, because parents in Uganda are shy. Me personally, I cannot have a conversation about girls with my dad because it has been ingrained in us from childhood. But that is to my detriment, because now I'm getting exposed. I have friends who have confessed to me personally that ever since they started unwanted, unprotected sexual intimacy, they never look back. Like you never want to go back to condoms and all that. And that's very dangerous. So I'd also like to commend Makerere University for supplying condoms in the halls. So we have halls of residence and some hostels of students, because we already know these students are sexually active. Right now, it's too late to stop telling them about how to engage. So the best way is to find a way of
Mitigating the
yes,
challenges.
mitigating the situation. But I really concur with my brother Bushanda that it should come from the grassroots. When someone is still a young boy, young girl, they tell them about the proper ways of engaging in sexual activity, so that it may not ruin their lives, because we know the impact of becoming a parent at a stage when you're still developing your life. So I really commend the government for the efforts they've tried, and I feel like they should put in more effort. It should be in the curriculum. We should actually have a subject that teaches students, pupils, on how to engage safely.
Before you conclude, on that point of having it in the curriculum, it's there. But the issue is, I remember in my primary 6 when we were reaching the topic of adolescence.
Very interesting topic.
And all of us were excited. But the speed at which my teachers rushed through this topic,
I think the teachers are shy, they're just like our parents.
the speed at which they rushed through that topic, I didn't understand. People were enjoying it. And remember, primary 6, we are around 12 years old, according to our curriculum. And that's the period when people, remember, with information, with the internet and all, young people are getting to see a lot of things online.
It's the first time I got to hear of the words penis and vagina, and you know.
And everyone get excited.
Yes.
So imagine we get to know about these things at the age of 12. Yet we have people in developed countries start having these conversations when they're young. If I to compare our world, the developed world and the developing world, there are a lot of issues that arise. I understand our African culture informs our way of life, which is very good. But in this ever-evolving world, we need to retain the good principles and practices that we have, but as well adopt ways that the world is providing for us. The information that we have, how can parents harmonize sharing that information with their children? But also institutions of higher learning should not come up with draconian measures, but rather come up with policies and solutions that are friendly and can make someone freely attain the right to education, have the right to privacy. The solution that she suggested, that come up with these campaigns and awareness and all. So these young people know exactly how to conduct themselves. Otherwise, wonderful discussion you guys have provided.
Drake, I want to add a voice to what everyone has said.
Yes.
And I think in regard to all these awareness campaigns, I believe we have, as you all have stated, that the parents are shy to actually have these conversations. Personally, I would thank my parents that they sat me down and told me what to do. But this is not what happens in every homestead. So I would think of an idea of engaging the parents in the awareness campaigns, in these advocacy groups. How about we also have sessions with the parents to actually encourage them to have an open communication with their children?
I think just 1 minute. My brother was addressing the issue of HIV. and how you see this campaign. When I was in primary, I think there's a certain, there's a team at the district, they came and picked us. We went at a certain level where the HIV started from, exactly the center. So we had songs, what, and so they were showing us how the society has been devastated. And all of us, by the time we came back to school, the only message you're telling people is HIV is bad. So I think these campaigns are good. Actually, this counseling, they should start from churches, they should go to schools, they should even go to homes. It doesn't, a parent sit down with your children, just 1 minute and 2 minutes, just say this, because what the generation needs to understand the dangers. Just dangers, tell them that this is this, but it is very dangerous. Tell someone who aborted the dangers in abortion. Because maybe she survived that time, she thinks that she can survive next time. So I think
that alone also,
yes,
it mentally affects the
exactly.
person.
So we needed to come up with such counseling. They should be in churches or in mosques. They should be in homes, like she has said. They should be even at schools. And even the government should add more GRs. Those district education officers, they should engage those primary schools. They should have a team that specifically comes and maybe a certain time, they address the school about the dangers. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you very much there. We have reached the first half of our conversation, and we're just going to quickly go for a short break and then be right back as we now discuss, we shift gears and talk about the 71-member delegation that went to the United Nations General Assembly in the United States in New York. Otherwise, it's been brilliant submissions from my panelists here, so I'm looking forward to the next part of the conversation. Stay with us.
Digital rights are those human rights and legal rights that allow individuals to access, use, create, and publish digital media, or to access and use computers, other electronic devices, and telecommunication networks. Digital rights include a right to freedom of expression, information and communication through technology, a right to privacy and data protection, a right to credit for personal works, a right to universal and equal digital access, a right to identity, a right to anonymity, a right to be forgotten, and a right for protection of minors, among others. The state's digital rights are frequently violated through various unfair actions, for example, blockage of websites and social networks, theft of credentials, unauthorized use of people's data for personal gain, privacy intrusion, online censorship, arrests and intimidation of online users, internet blockages, and the proliferation of laws and regulations that undermine the potential of technology to drive social, economic, and political development worldwide. It is hence every citizen's responsibility to respect rights of other digital users and to speak out or report to the responsible parties when one's rights are violated.
A few days ago, we saw the 71-member delegation from the Office of the Prime Minister going to represent Uganda at the United Nations General Assembly. As I was reading, and I saw a very funny comment that we have a mission of Uganda in the United States, and what is their role? Because the mission is supposed to represent us there in such in such a high-stake conversation. But nonetheless, in the first half of the conversation, we're talking about the mandatory about pregnancy screening at Islamic University in Uganda. But now I want us to delve into understand this conversation really. So I'm going to start with you, my brother Max, to first put context in that particular 71-member delegation that went into the United Nations General Assembly, as we then delve into understanding exactly the implication this has on us as Uganda.
Well, thank you very much. And with this conversation, I'm going to be very blunt. And first and foremost, before we even delve into this, I really do believe this delegation, sending a 71-member delegation to the United States, is outright extravagance. But anyway, I'm not shocked. It's the NRM government. We've been here for 37 years, and they've perpetrated a kind of politics where people want to reap from duty. They want to reap from their obligations of the state. So where we're in a situation where we have a mundane cabinet, parliament that keeps expanding day by day, because these people are looking at political strategies. How do I appease a certain region by giving them a cabinet minister? So we realize that the government is really hipped. We have so many players in the government who are all earning on taxpayers' money in a bid to consolidate certain political gains. And that is costing us a lot of money each day that goes by. We already know the number, the losses we've incurred, how constrained our budget is, but we still go ahead and spend huge amounts of money in facilitating people in fancy, lavish hotels in New York. Come on, these people don't sleep. They don't sleep in downtown. They don't sleep in Brooklyn. They don't sleep in Queens. But they're going to sleep in New York, where per night it's a lot of money that's being spent. Sorry. And at the end of the day, we realize that having the prime minister and vice president both go it's very wasteful, first and foremost. Let me give you a historical perspective of these diplomatic relations and how people go to summits and a lot of money is spent. Just recently, I came across a story of how we had a minister a few years back, I think in 2008, who would, every time he would go to the UK, he would sleep in the toilets of the hotel so that he does not spend on money for accommodation in the hotel. So he would save on that money, that per diem, and he comes back here in Uganda and, I mean, he's appeasing his voters with that money. So people are now looking at trips abroad and these diplomacy summits as a means of gaining financial capacity. So I find that very wasteful, and I do believe we can do better.
All right.
Yes.
Joshua, I would also like to first pick your thoughts before we delve into the nitty-gritties of the conversation.
So I don't think it was necessary to spend this amount of money, 5.2 billion, on sending these officials abroad, because in the first instance, the vice president, Jessica Alupo, was given an entourage of 51 officials. Then later, we see the prime minister also going in with her entourage of 20 officials. So you know, like this representation, you don't need to have many people who have to represent you. Basically, you have to have the few who are knowledgeable, because we look at quality over quantity. So basically, that's my opinion in that. It was not necessary to have all this amount of money spent on such a delegation.
All right. Grace, just an overview, your thoughts before we delve into deep understanding of the conversation.
Thank you, Drake. Not to sound far from what the previous speakers have said, that was such a wasteful move. Like 71 members, that's quite many. And
52 billion.
yeah, and everyone is entitled to, I think, 3.5 million minus the accommodation.
Every day.
Every day. That is way too much. And recently we are having rainy days and we are suffering with roads. Instead of actually putting that money into such many members, how about putting it where it is actually needed? And also, what I think about that is we would have chosen, or they would have chosen, the very appropriate members, because I don't think that all the 71 members have the diplomatic knowledge to apply. Yeah, thank you.
All right. Godwin, thoughts?
Thank you so much. All along, I'm going to answer the spokesperson of today's government. But my thoughts, I think, 71 delegates, that was a very huge number, in my own view. Uganda did not require such a big delegation to UN. And if the vice president was given an entourage of 51, and then the prime minister comes in with 20, the question we should be asking ourselves is who invites the prime minister and who is the vice president representing? Because the vice president represented the president. So what was the role of the prime minister in UN? That should be the question. I think we need to, what's the role of, because if the vice president was given an entourage of 51, maybe that's okay. But me, I'm looking at the role of the prime minister in UN, where the vice president presents the president, and then later on, they are there in UN, New York, and then the prime minister does what? Comes in with an entourage of 20, so meaning making 71. So I think the problem, I'm going to give you just a simple knowledge. A poor man was given money, very good money, to go and build a house. So he came like to lobby from a friend, told friends how bad he is, and people collected and gave him money. So as he was approaching home, there was a certain bar. He branched and found friends there. So he started buying alcohol for everyone to drink. So when he got drunk, he said, you see, tomorrow I'm going to build a house. And I've gotten money. But he forgot that he had used the money to buy alcohol for these people. So when he reached home, the money was meaning we would not even start a foundation. So he made a very lousy statement, just like Uganda. I know how government officials, some maybe don't see this. He made a lousy statement and said, at least I will get some grass and maybe put here, but we shall get money in future. So the problem is Uganda is a poor country. That's what it's a developing country. A developing country to waste money in that angle, it's quite very shaming. Even those who are willing maybe to fund Uganda, you see that it is a country with people who are so wasteful in terms of mind. So it was not a very good image to UN. Wherever they flooded and they were looking for hotels and what, it was a very big shame. Just that maybe those are diplomatic things, they don't say, they just keep quiet and organize and do what the prime minister, they make sure everyone is accommodated, but it did not bring a very good implication. And maybe later on as the conversation goes on, we shall go see the message, what's the message Uganda to UN. And maybe
Do we have one?
yeah, of course we are going to go into the speech and see what they say. Is it what we're supposed to be saying? So according to me, I want to know the role of the prime minister with 21, then the 51, what is the role there? So I understand UN has committees, has even organs and what, but is it that when you have the General Assembly, that's when also we have those committees sitting and maybe each country is a presentation? That's what should be a question. But otherwise, I don't see any reason as to we have such a huge number of 71. Thank you so much.
All right. Joshua,
Yes, please.
I want to begin with you on this conversation. You mentioned the argument of quality over quantity. And when for us who study international law and for people who do international relations, know that diplomacy relates to things to do with relations between states. And the UN General Assembly is an annual event that happens in the United States of America to go and reflect on the resolutions of the United Nations. And before even we go further, the question of what is our foreign policy as a country is something that has a lot of question marks onto that. But we shall get to the foreign policy of our country. But I want you to help us understand what exactly the diplomats do when they go for such missions like United Nations General Assembly.
Yeah, so when diplomats go for such conferences, maybe to the General Assembly, they go there to represent issues of maybe maybe like our country, Uganda. They go and represent issues maybe at a global stage. So basically, when you see what the only problem with our country is that we have a wasteful expenditure. We are running on a deficit budget, and we are being funded. And if you notice, most of the big countries, maybe like the US, they will send a very small representation to the United Nations. But for us, Uganda, we believe in the big numbers. The big numbers do not speak a lot. We can have the small who are going to represent our issues.
Quality over quantity.
Quality over quantity, basically. So basically, I would, because now you see Uganda is being funded by the major powers like the US, maybe, and at a tune of maybe 65%, basically. So we are actually very, very broke. We are very broke that we cannot even, and the money we are spending is like a wasted money. Like we're wasting money. Maybe you see now, like the doctors who were requesting for salary increment, and now you see this money is being wasted on what? On this many members going to the UN to represent Uganda.
71, and yet we had
71.
medical interns crying.
Medical interns crying, wanting to be deployed. So this is basically. So what I know is that the president is losing grip on the country. So if this is happening, then you know that even the president is behind this, because like how do you see this happening and you just let it go? So basically, yeah.
All right. Max,
Yes.
you highlight a very serious issue on how this government is more of a rewards system. But before we get to the rewards system, let us understand our country's foreign policy. Because when you go to a serious conference or a big conference like the UN General Assembly, it's a big stage to go and front your country's foreign policy and to go and lobby for investors to come into your country. 71 members seems to be a huge number, even just for in terms of us maybe wanting to have effective representation. We cannot have effective representation with 71 members who have no knowledge on diplomatic work, who have no knowledge on Uganda's foreign policy, I would say. So what does this say when it comes to the issue of our country's foreign policy from what we have seen as a young Ugandan?
Yes, thank you. But first and foremost, I think to best delve into why the rationale as to why such a huge number was sent is, who are these people, first and foremost? And where do they hail from? Which ministries? Maybe if you told me these are technocrats from Ministry of Foreign Affairs who are well versed with foreign policy analysis and diplomatic relations, because such a huge number, if at all they could justify it by saying maybe these are top guys in the country who are going to, lobby, make sure they reach out to all the countries in the world to ensure that we have diplomatic relations with them. Because we have countries in this world that do not have a diplomatic mission here. So maybe if that was the plan, I would understand. But this is not the first time, first of all. Just last year, we had a similar incident of the vice president and prime minister again. But which people did they have in their entourage? A chef, personal assistants. More of keeping these people there in luxury while they are there. So I think we shall have to delve into who these people were actually. And we best align with how Uganda is dealing with its foreign policy abroad. Let me give you a small historical snippet. I remember in 1979, when President Vinais had just assumed power, after they had overthrown Lule, there happens to be an OAU summit in Gabon. And then, President Vinais reaches there, and the seat for Uganda was not there. They had not reserved one for Uganda. On what grounds? They claimed that Uganda was still under occupation by Tanzania. The Bakombozi were still in Uganda. Nyerere still had a grip on Uganda. And that was a huge diplomatic embarrassment. Can you imagine that, to look for a chair to give the president of Uganda and his entourage had to sleep on the ground? And that's when we realized that Uganda needs to learn from the past when it comes to our image at these summits and these conferences abroad, where we have to project our foreign policy. But it's public knowledge. We are cognizant of the fact that we are a developing nation that depends so much. We rely so much on foreign aid that, to the extent that our voices does not matter so much, really. So why send 71 people to go and talk about our foreign policy? Except the fact that maybe we are helping in the Great Lakes region to bring security forth, and we've pursued the principle of non-alignment. Beyond that, we really don't have much say at the UN General Assembly. We're going to go there and make speeches and speak good English.
Take photos.
Yes, but they're not consequential. So I really do believe that even that justification of sending such a huge number on grounds of foreign policy, it really doesn't add up. Let me give you another example of the late Captain Thomas Sankara. When he would go for these things, actually when he went for the UN at one point, he was barred from those summits because he was too radical, and he went to Harlem But whenever he would go with his entourage to these summits, he would ensure that they sleep at the cheapest hotels. At one point, even made them sleep in a small hall of sorts, and even hired mattresses for his ministers and top technocrats. And what reason did he give? Why sleep in a 5-star hotel when people in my country cannot afford safe drinking water? So all that money at least is diverted and put back into the masses, because that's the most important obligation any leader must have, the welfare of the people.
Do our leaders have the welfare of the people at heart? It's a question I think I'll now ask Godwin. He posed the question of the role of the PM in that delegation, provided that we already had the office of the Vice President representing, and then we now have the office of the Prime Minister with 20 delegates. He posed a question on the issue relating to, he raises the issue to do with leadership, that, see, when you're leaders, you need to hold people at heart. So help us understand the question that you pose. Do we really see any role of the office of the Prime Minister with its 20 delegates representing the country?
Yes, thank you so much. I think actually this topic is a very good one. Though you have to, one thing I have to say is that I saw a list of those, the 71 delegates. And I was saying maybe this one is a permanent secretary, is a minister and all that. I understand each ministry has maybe a certain foreign policy that is following for it to survive. I understand. And now the question is, the problem is we are now, like you said, the president is losing grip. It's just like you can be a father and you have very many children and some be mad, others be what, you not kill them, you stay with them. Whether what, you be with them. So the president himself has been overwhelmed by the kind of people that come. Most of the problem comes in where people find politics as a source of income. That's where the problem is. And that comes to the question of Bwiranda about the service, having someone at heart. Because they forget that actually politics or leadership is service. It is not a source of income.
Yeah.
You cannot be told what you're doing and say, I'm an MP. That's not work. That's a service. It's like service about self. But people have taken politics to be source of income to develop themselves. And now, in a situation where a country has monetized the politics, where everything is, whenever you be a councillor, so whenever I get a chance and I go to you and I get that PDM, I can build a 5-star hotel in Kampala, I can put an arcade. That's where the problem comes in, and therefore you lose track on, you don't have people at heart. Because me have no problem. If you went there and maybe, you see, yes, it represent the country. But if you present them, what do you get from there? If you used 52 billion, do you come with 200 billion? Maybe we start from there. We account, you say, okay, it's okay, you used 52, you brought 200 billion. Maybe this is a balance, minus 52, the remaining, you should put it in these sectors and develop them. That should be a question. Because me, when I heard the speech of the Vice President, she mentioned things of climate change, things of Security Council, having representation as Africans on the Security Council. She talked about COVID, up to now they're still crying of COVID. She talked about the things of refugees. And all those, you would see that her speech had a summary of all the 71 entries what they had gone to do. Sure. So because even if you see how many people were seated there, how many people were there, and because the Vice President said on the issue of climate change, we are progressing. The government is trying to bring back the forest cover and the swamps. But the question is, the swamps in Kampala and even other places have been encroached too. So which swamps are you reclaiming? That's why so in other words, you're addressing a lie. So even if you're going to lobby, and maybe you're from the Ministry of Agriculture and or Ministry of Environment, and you're meeting people from Copenhagen, Denmark, or you're meeting people from Switzerland, and you want to be funded to address the issue of climate, it's going to be very hard for you to rebut that statement of a Vice President. Because these are things that are seen globally. You know, if you're going to lobby, you must address an issue where people are seeing a progress. If you talk about refugees, I understand maybe you can't host refugees, and I think the tops among in African countries. That's okay. But then there are some things We have to be very clear with. Me, the problem is, when I heard the speech of the Vice President, she was very fluent in English and everything was good. But because she reminded them, you see, when we had the Paris Agreement, the funding body assured us 100 billion or what US dollars to fund the countries, but up to now, so meaning it is just, you see, she talked about things of anti-homosexuality. Though it was very technical, she said the cultural values, for us embracing our cultural values should not bring a problem to our funders and what. So unless the 71 issues, they were trying to amend what has been seen publicly, where Uganda has gone astray with other countries' funding bodies in terms of the anti-homosexuality act. It is not now, it's no longer there, I think. So now that's where the problem is. But if they, because me, when I heard her speech, and the 71 delegation, it was great to say that it's like you have wronged your parent, and now you call your siblings to come and help you to harmonize. That was the message I picked, because the 71 delegation, really, it was a very huge one. Even if you overwhelmed, me, to my own understanding, they overwhelmed the summit. But which is okay. But me, the problem is, what you're addressing, is it what you're doing? You used 52 billion, like you people have said. How much have you come back with? That's a question. So I really, and you should understand that actually there are two governments. You see, NRM is just a bus, like it uses a symbol, holding NRA inside, and all these prime ministers and what, they are not NRA, they are NRM, and NRM is just to make money. Come and I make money. There's no NRM without money. I myself, I support NRM, but I don't support what they are doing. I support the ideologies there, because if you read the manifesto of NRM, that's the best manifesto. You cannot even rebut it. But are the people doing it? No. Because people don't have the doctrine of NRM. This is an NRA, having NRM just out as a body, but him as president of the country has been overwhelmed by members of NRM. That's why you're going to find a problem. Minister just spends the way he wants. And that's why people no longer have the MPs and ministers, they don't have people at heart. Because you should address issues of slums in Kampala, address issues of Karamoja. You address a lot of street kids here in Kampala. But you cannot use 52 billion. Medical interns is deducted their money. It is now 1 million, right? You cut the budget of NYC, National Youth Council, from 4 billion to 800 million. And then you're using 52 billion
in a week.
We have to be logical. You say you don't have money. That's why you cut the budget of NYC, which is addressing the issue of youth in the country, from 4 billion to 800 million. But now how you get the 52 billion to go in a week to go in New York. So what are you telling the public? You don't have money, or you have the money, but maybe youths are not at the forefront.
Your priorities
are beyond young people. Your priorities are beyond teachers, your priorities are beyond doctors.
And we are all appalling health system.
Yes, exactly.
That money can build about 3 health centers.
I'm not even looking at it. It can go alone. Yes, Rubawa is still there. Every time there are probes, everything, the committees are sitting, and you find that it is a whole disaster. And now everyone is saying, instead of me dying, let 5 Godwins die, me I survive. That's what the ministers are doing. Let 100 people in Karamoja die, but me and my family, we survive. But you fail to understand that actually you're not operating in a vacuum. You have to operate with people. And these children of yours, you're trying to say you're getting money for them to be rich and what, they're going to face the same challenge. You should address the challenge so that the children find easy in terms of leadership. Don't monetize politics. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Powerful submission. Grace, I want to quickly get your thoughts on the issue of our priorities as a country. That we send a 71-member delegation to the 78th United Nations General Assembly. We spend 52 billion Ugandan shillings, and we are the same government, or we are the same country that complains we do not have resources to possibly help combat challenges relating to the problems in Karamoja. We are the same government that complains that we do not have resources to facilitate medical interns, and yet we are the same government that spends 52 billion Ugandan shillings in a week.
Thank you, Drake. Before I respond to that question, for once, let me be positive. Everyone has been negative in that matter. Answering the question that you did ask my brother here, that was it pertinent, or was it important for the Prime Minister to actually attend or go with her cohort to the General Assembly? I must say, I think one of the issues being addressed by the General Assembly is the Sustainable Development Goals. And maybe, I may not be certain, but I think it's the Prime Minister's office that's handling such. So maybe where the loophole was is that she had to carry a whole lot of other 19 members along with her. But I, for one, I believe that she was a relevant person
in achieving
in
the
that regard.
SDGs.
Yeah. And to answer your question, this gets back or zeroes down to what the leaders are actually doing. As you've said, that the government is not, or is actually overlooking what are supposed to be the priorities and centering on things that are actually not going to provide like solution or something. You talked about the issue of Karamoja. He talked about other issues. We have the road issue. So I would love to attach this to what the leaders, because these are our representatives. So I feel like they are failing to address these issues. And as they have said, that they have centered the whole thing, they have monetized politics. Everyone is actually about achieving their own selfish goals and satisfying their ambitions, other than caring about what the masses or what is good for the masses. So I believe that there needs to be a change in that regard.
All right. Joshua, wasteful, we have a wasteful government. Someone mentioned that we have a parliament of over 500, over 580 members of parliament who receive tremendous amounts of money in terms of salary and allowances. And we have now, right now, we see that 71 member delegation, who, by the way, if at all we are to ask them and hold them accountable to tell us what they discussed and the outcomes of the United Nations General Assembly, if at all we are to put them in a room and tell them what did you discuss, what did you bring, what is going to be implemented, and all, we shall be shocked that we shan't be having, they won't give us the results. So speak to the issue of wastefulness at the expense of the taxpayer.
Yeah, so the wastefulness part of it is one of the big issues right now, and that has trended in social media. Basically, that sum of money was very big, and truly speaking, you cannot send such a big number of people to represent a country like Uganda. It's an excessive number. And also, I noticed when I went through the list in the Daily Monitor, I noticed there are people who are not even applicable, who are not supposed to be going for such conferences. Now, like the Minister for Foreign Affairs went with his wife. Basically, you cannot take your wife for such a conference, because that money, because I'm sure they paid for having maybe business class, and now when she got maybe just staying in an expensive hotel and all those other people. So basically, for me, what I can say is that that money has been pushed to irrelevant areas. You know, like this other, maybe the spouses to the different ministers, maybe. Yeah. So what I would say is that government needs to maybe reduce this wasteful expenditure by minding about like the numbers of people they choose to go and represent. Because for me, I always look at the smaller number can give you still a better representation. You don't need to have excessive people going in representing a small country. So basically, that's what I would say over the wasteful expenditure.
My brother, by the way, do you know that I think there is an association of spouses of ministers of foreign affairs? That shows you how much wasteful the world has become. Like, I mean, I think maybe it's a diplomatic move. I stand to be corrected, but all I know is that I find it peculiar that the Minister of Foreign Affairs, every time they travel, they always travel with their spouse. So maybe it's it has diplomatic implications.
Yeah, it does. It does.
It does.
It does have diplomatic implications, but our country overdoes it. And as I'm not supposed to be biased, but as a young person who lives in this country and who hopes to have the best, at times it saddens my heart that we are spending 52 billion on 71 people in a span of 7 days, and have people dying out of hunger in Karamoja, in northern Uganda. Mothers who do not have medicines in hospitals. And you have no justification, like you have no moral authority to tell us this, you have no moral authority at all. As an individual, that is utterly disappointing that our country has reached the point that it's a reward system, that for you to go for such conferences, just know the right people, even if you don't have the technicalities that is supposed to represent us, you just have to affiliate yourselves with those people, and your name is on the list. You have, like, it's sad. It's sad, my friends on the panel.
And also, it has been used as a tool of compromise.
Yeah.
You find an MP recently confided in us of how, for you to be on a list that goes on foreign trips, MPs also have benchmarking trips.
Yeah, they do.
That are spending a lot of money, tremendous expenditures. But for you to be on that list, you must be in the good books of the big woman in the house.
Definitely.
And by being in her good books, you have to always agree with whatever is brought on the floor, and it leaves no room for holding government accountable for certain actions. I mean, people have become yes men. Yes, just to get on the next flight to Amsterdam or Denmark or something.
Which then brings me now to the concluding, us giving us our concluding remarks and parting shots. On the way forward, we need a better country. Very young country, very young. Average age in Uganda is what, 25, 20?
25.
We are largely a young continent, largely a young country. Now, that being the case, the decisions that are being made by our elders are going to affect us young people. And all of you on this panel are young. What recommendations or what pieces of advice do you then give our elders? I'll begin with you, Godwin.
Yes,
as we conclude.
Thank you so much. As I'm giving my last comment on this topic, I think from your question, as young people, one thing we have to sit from, you see, I have always a problem of us having good discussions, speak good English, have good solutions, but when you get chance to be in any of those offices, we do contrary. That's where another contradiction comes in. So we shouldn't, one thing I advise as young people, one, we should stick to what we know is right. Two, we should not just prophesy good English and maybe we need to be taken somewhere, then which they will do contrary. So this generation that is leading us, the generation with the president and the ministers and all that, it's an aging generation. And by all means, by naturalization or by all means, they have to go, and our generation is going to come in. One thing I want to say is that as we continue to criticize the government, let us criticize with solutions, not just criticize and maybe ignite the society because it is prone to those challenges, and we don't provide solution to that. So I think the solution we have, because I think young people have a body that governs us, all of us, which is NYC, and maybe if we were students, we have UNSA, which is there. Let us first clean our chambers. NYC, if you're given money, do you do what you're supposed to do? UNSA, are you answering the questions of those institutions that are subscribing to UNSA? Or we are addressing issues of corruption, but when corruption is within us. Now that's why I get a contradiction as Godwin. And we end up having no more authority as young people. To meet someone who is corrupt and is older than, he's going to ask a very terrible question. And even when you reach there, you start shaking because he's going to ask you a question that you may fail even to get appropriate answer. But the thing I say that there must be a revolution by all means. We're going to have a revolution. A new government is going to come. But let a new government find us when we're prepared to do the right things in the right time, and we don't be that we don't preach what these people are doing again when the time comes. So one thing is that as young people who are yearning for change, and I know every young person in this country is yearning for change, let us yearn for positive change and consistent change, and a change that we can stand and talk about in future. So that even if I met Bwiranda somewhere, is going to say, we met sometime back in a studio and you said this. Are you still doing this? Let us be accountable to our own societies, not accountable to my own heart, because I can compromise my heart, but I can't compromise society. By all means, I have to be accountable to society. So I bring that young people, as young people, let us stick to what we're seeing, and the revolution is going to come, and let us advocate for a positive change, not a change that's just going to leave our country in turmoil, not a change that ignites hatred and all those things, but it must be a change that you're seeing the government, the country must go this and this. But by definitely, always, this generation will go and a generation is going to come.
Yeah.
So I think my last shot is, as young people, let us be prepared. By the time we get there, let us not get tired saying that when we will be there. We shall be there by all means. By the time we get there, are we prepared enough? Or there's a generation that we don't want to read, we don't want to engage in societies. And when the change comes in, we have been yearning for, also do things sluggishly because we did not prepare for it. So let us prepare for it. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for those very wonderful recommendations. Grace, parting shots and recommendations.
Thank you, Drake. I won't differ from what my brother has said. My recommendation is, let's do what we preach, as he has said. Yes, we are demanding for change, but when we get to these offices, what are we doing? Because at one point, I believe that those people in those offices once actually demanded for change, but when they got there, they acted contrary to what they were preaching. So what does humanity demand? Let us not only look at our selfish ambitions, but what is better for everyone and what is better for the country as a whole.
Thank you very much. Powerful.
Well, I like the point Godwin brings out, the accountability. You know, when you go for such conferences, you should always be accountable. Show us what have you maybe presented. You talk to the people, tell the people this happened and this. So that accountability aspect is always important. And then maybe one other thing is that there should be a criteria maybe to be followed when choosing these people who maybe represent us, maybe at the UN. You can't just come out putting anyone. You know, the Minister of Foreign Affairs puts anyone they want, maybe. So it should be a criteria to be followed. Maybe that's how we can control these excessive people who go out to represent us. So basically, yeah, that's it.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Joshua. Your concluding remarks, Max.
Yes, well, I associate myself with all the precurrent submissions. I may not have very much to add, but all I can say is I want us to remember what the Commander-in-Chief of the NRA, President Yoweri Museveni, used to tell these young boys who are joining the struggle from university to go to the bush to fight with him. If you came with an extra pair of shoes, you would give to a comrade. If you came with clothes, you would give them away, because he always told them that shame is a revolutionary sentiment. But a few years later, we see he's the same person flying his kid to go and give birth abroad. But anyway, we'll leave it at that.
That is not a problem. the daughter flying to go and give birth is not
a problem. Yes, exactly. But
yes,
my point is, we need to be frugal. We need to be frugal with our resources. We're already struggling financially. So if at all we're in situations where we have to utilize the modest resources we have in a way that is for the benefit of all of us, instead of champagne for a few, let's have safe drinking water for all. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you very much. You have had the submissions from the university students there, and have been very powerful and very good submissions. And for the leaders out there who are watching, listening to these young brains. And I think to move our country forward, we also need young people in the decision-making body, which means that they will represent and speak for the young people who are sidelined. Otherwise, tonight we've been discussing mandatory pregnancy screening at Islamic University in Uganda, and we also assessed the 71-member delegation that represented Uganda in the 78th United Nations General Assembly. Joining me to discuss, people who joined me to discuss this wonderful topic were students of Makerere University, Islamic University in Uganda, and the Uganda Christian University. Thank you very much. My name is Douglas Onen. I've been your host for today. Thanks to the production team, Civic Space TV, Rashid and crew. Otherwise, see you again, same time, same place next week. Bye-bye.